Before we get into today's story, let me ask you something. Would you be okay if your spouse wanted to stay friends with the person they cheated on you with? What if they said it was just for a game? Well, today's story is about exactly that situation, and trust me, this one is wild. A man discovers his wife's affair, they go to therapy, try to rebuild their marriage, but then she drops a bombshell in their counseling session. She wants to keep her affair partner in her life. Why? To play Dungeons and Dragons. I know what you're thinking, this can't be real. But it is. And it gets even crazier. Stick around, because we need to talk about this. But first, pause right now and comment, would you stay in this marriage? Team divorce or team stay? Alright, so let's set the scene. Our main character, we'll call him Mark, has been married to his wife for 15 years. 15 years. They have 2 children together, and one of them has special needs, which makes this situation even more complicated. Now, Mark's wife has always been into Dungeons and Dragons. If you don't know what that is, it's basically a fantasy role-playing game where people sit around a table, create characters, and go on adventures together. There's usually one person called the Dungeon Master, or DM, who runs the game and creates the story. For Mark's wife, that Dungeon Master was a longtime friend. We'll call him Dan. At first, everything seemed innocent. Just friends playing a game, right? But Mark started noticing some red flags. The way his wife talked about Dan. The amount of time they spent together. The inside jokes. The constant texting. But here's where it gets really bad. One day, Mark gets some shocking news. His wife and Dan were both fired from their jobs. Why? Because they were caught sexually harassing an employee. Together. Let that sink in for a second. His wife and this guy Dan were so close, so inappropriate at work, that they both lost their jobs over it. And this effectively ended his wife's career. Her professional reputation? Gone. Now, you'd think at this point, alarm bells would be ringing, right? You'd think Mark would put his foot down and say, this friendship needs to end. But he trusted his wife. He believed her when she said nothing was going on. Big mistake. So last year, 1 year ago, Mark discovers the truth. His wife has been having an affair with Dan. The DnD Dungeon Master. The same guy they got fired with. And this wasn't just an emotional affair. This was physical. This was real. His wife had betrayed him, betrayed their family, betrayed their 15-year marriage, for the guy who ran her Dungeons and Dragons games. When Mark confronted her, she claimed it was a mistake. She said she was sorry. She agreed to cut off all contact with Dan. No more texting. No more DnD sessions. No more friendship. Done. Mark, because he loves his wife and wants to save his family, agrees to try and work through it. They start going to couples therapy. They're both committed, or so Mark thinks, to rebuilding their marriage and their trust. For a whole year, they've been in therapy. A year. Mark has been working on forgiveness. He's been working on rebuilding trust. He's been trying to move past the betrayal and the pain and the humiliation of knowing his wife chose another man over him. And then, their last therapy session happens. And this is where everything falls apart. So they're sitting in their therapist's office. Mark thinks they're making progress. He thinks they're on the road to recovery. And then his wife drops this absolute bombshell. She tells Mark, in front of their therapist, that she wants Dan back in her life. Not as a romantic partner, she claims. Just as a friend. Because, and I quote, he needs to stay in her life to run her DnD sessions. Let me repeat that. His wife, who had an affair with this man, who destroyed her career because of inappropriate behavior with this man, who promised to cut all contact with this man, now wants him back in her life. To play a game. Mark is stunned. He's sitting there thinking, are you serious right now? You cheated on me with this guy, and now you want to be friends again so he can run your fantasy game? But his wife insists it's different now. She says they'll never cross that line again. Why? Because they'll be playing DnD with a crowd. Other people will be there. So obviously nothing can happen, right? Mark tries to explain that this makes him uncomfortable. That he can't trust Dan. That he can't trust them together. That having her affair partner in their lives, in any capacity, is a deal breaker for him. But his wife won't budge. She insists that Dan must stay in her life. That this friendship is important to her. That it's just DnD. And here's the kicker, the therapist, instead of helping them work through this, shifts their sessions from marriage counseling to separation counseling. Because Mark has made his position clear, if Dan stays in her life, the marriage is over. His wife has made her position clear, Dan is staying in her life. So now they're heading toward divorce. But wait, it gets even worse. Because Mark's wife and her entire friend circle, probably including Dan and the DnD group, have now convinced themselves that Mark is the problem. They're telling him he's being unreasonable. They're saying he's overreacting. They're acting like he's the crazy one for not wanting his wife to be friends with the man she cheated on him with. In fact, they've gone so far as to suggest that Mark might be clinically insane for wanting a divorce over what they describe as just a bunch of people playing DnD. Let me say that again. They think he's insane. Not the wife who had an affair. Not the wife who wants to stay friends with her affair partner. Not the wife who's prioritizing a game over her marriage and her family. No. They think Mark is the crazy one. This is textbook gaslighting. They're trying to make him question his own reality. They're trying to make him feel like his very reasonable boundary, don't be friends with the person you cheated on me with, is somehow unreasonable. And the worst part? Mark is starting to doubt himself. He's asking strangers on Reddit if he's the problem. If he's being unreasonable. If he's wrong for wanting a divorce. That's how effective gaslighting can be. So Mark takes his story to Reddit, to the Am I the A-hole community, and asks, am I wrong for wanting a divorce? And Reddit did not hold back. The top comment said, your wife chose her affair partner over you. Again. She's literally choosing a game night with the man she cheated with over her marriage. You're not insane. File for divorce. Another user wrote, the audacity of this woman. She had an affair, promised to cut contact, and now wants him back in her life? For DnD. This is disrespectful on every level. Someone else pointed out, the fact that she and her friends are calling you crazy is manipulation. They're gaslighting you. Trust your gut. This marriage is over. But here's the comment that really hit hard. Your wife has shown you who she is. Believe her. She's choosing Dan over you. She's choosing DnD over your marriage. She's choosing her fantasy game over her children's stable home. Let that sink in. And you know what? Reddit is right. This isn't about DnD. This isn't about a game. This is about respect. This is about boundaries. This is about a woman who had an affair and now wants to have her cake and eat it too. Alright, here's my honest take on this. Mark is not the a-hole here. Not even close. His wife had an affair. That's betrayal number 1. Then she wants to stay friends with her affair partner. That's betrayal number 2. And now she and her friends are calling him crazy for having a problem with it. That's betrayal number 3. Look, I get it. DnD can be important to people. Friendships can be important. But you know what else is important? Your marriage. Your family. Your commitment to the person you vowed to spend your life with. If my partner cheated on me and then said, "Hey, I know I broke your trust, but I really need to stay friends with the person I cheated with because we have this hobby together," my response would be, "Enjoy your hobby. I'm filing for divorce." Because that's not a request from someone who's truly remorseful. That's not a request from someone who's committed to rebuilding trust. That's a request from someone who wants to keep their affair partner close while maintaining the security of their marriage. And the fact that she's doing this in therapy? The place where you're supposed to be working on your marriage? That tells you everything you need to know. She's not committed to this marriage. She's committed to Dan. And Mark deserves better than that. His kids deserve better than that.